The man who would later be known as the Golden State Killer didn't just break into homes. He studied them. He watched, waited, learned routines, and then slipped inside like a shadow no one could stop. For over a decade, he terrorized California, leaving behind a trail of fear, unanswered questions, and a haunting mystery that would go unsolved for more than 40 years. And the most chilling part? He was hiding in plain sight the entire time. It began in the mid-1970s in the quiet suburbs of Sacramento. At first, the crimes seemed almost small: burglaries, prowling, stolen items. But there was something different about this intruder. He wasn't just stealing valuables. He was invading lives, rearranging drawers, leaving behind a disturbing sense that he had been watching for far longer than anyone realized. Soon, the crimes escalated. The man became known as the East Area Rapist, a predator who struck at night, targeting women and couples. He would enter homes silently, often while families slept, using fear and control as weapons. Victims described a methodical, calculating attacker, someone who planned every move, someone who knew exactly how to disappear without a trace. Law enforcement was overwhelmed. Despite dozens of attacks, there were no solid leads. As the years passed, the crimes spread south into Southern California, evolving into something even more terrifying. The same man, now linked through forensic evidence, began committing murders. The press gave him another name: the original Night Stalker. Different name, same chilling precision. The crimes were brutal, but what haunted investigators most was his ability to vanish. The case grew colder with every passing year. Detectives worked tirelessly, comparing evidence, interviewing witnesses, and chasing leads that led nowhere. The killer left behind DNA, but in the 1970s and 80s, the technology to use it effectively didn't exist. He became a ghost, a legend whispered about in true crime circles, a reminder that some monsters never get caught. But the story didn't end there. Decades later, in the early 2000s, advancements in DNA technology gave investigators a new weapon. Cold case units reopened files, re-examining evidence with fresh eyes. One name that stood out in the renewed effort was investigator Paul Holes, who became determined to finally identify the man behind the terror. He and his team believed the answer was hidden in the DNA all along. Here's where the case takes a dramatic turn. Instead of searching traditional criminal databases, investigators turned to genealogy websites. These platforms allowed people to upload their DNA to trace family history. By comparing crime scene DNA to these public databases, investigators could find distant relatives of the suspect. It was a long shot, but it worked. They built a family tree, tracing connections across generations, narrowing down potential suspects. After months of painstaking work, one name emerged: Joseph James DeAngelo. DeAngelo was a former police officer. Let that sink in. A man who once swore to uphold the law had allegedly been committing some of the most horrifying crimes in California history. He had lived a quiet life, blending into his community, raising a family, going unnoticed for decades. In 2018, law enforcement made their move. They collected DNA from items DeAngelo discarded in public, things like a tissue and a door handle. When tested, the results were undeniable. The DNA matched. After more than 40 years, the Golden State Killer finally had a name. Before we go deeper into what happened next, if you're into real cases like this, hit subscribe and stay with Shadow Files. There are stories out there that still haven't been told, and you won't want to miss them. When DeAngelo was arrested, the world watched in disbelief. How could someone live such a normal life while hiding such a dark past? Neighbors described him as quiet, even ordinary. Nothing about him suggested the terror he had once unleashed. In court, the evidence was overwhelming. Dozens of charges, spanning multiple counties, backed by DNA and survivor testimony. In 2020, DeAngelo pleaded guilty, bringing an official end to one of the longest-running investigations in American history. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But even with the case solved, questions remain. How did he evade capture for so long? Some believe his background in law enforcement gave him an edge. He understood investigative techniques, knew how to avoid leaving evidence, and possibly monitored police responses. Others think it was simply a matter of timing. His crimes occurred before modern forensic science could catch up. Then there's the question of motive. What drives someone to commit such calculated, repeated acts over years? Psychologists have studied the case, pointing to patterns of control, obsession, and escalation. But no explanation fully captures the reality of what happened. Another theory suggests there may have been missed opportunities. Some investigators believe DeAngelo came close to being caught multiple times but slipped through due to lack of coordination between jurisdictions. Back then, communication between police departments wasn't as seamless as it is today. Information gaps may have allowed him to continue. And perhaps the most unsettling theory of all, could there have been more victims? While many cases were linked through DNA, some remain unsolved or uncertain. Investigators have worked to connect every possible incident, but the full extent of his crimes may never be known. That lingering uncertainty keeps the case alive, even after the conviction. The Golden State Killer case also changed the future of criminal investigations. The use of genetic genealogy opened doors to solving countless cold cases across the United States. It proved that even decades-old mysteries could be cracked with the right technology and persistence. But it also raised ethical questions. How much privacy should individuals expect when it comes to their DNA? Should law enforcement have access to databases meant for personal use? The debate continues, and the answers aren't simple. What is clear is this: the victims were finally given a voice. For years, they lived with fear, trauma, and unanswered questions. The arrest and conviction of DeAngelo brought a sense of closure, though the scars remain. In many ways, this case is a reminder that time doesn't erase the truth. It may hide it, delay it, bury it beneath layers of uncertainty, but eventually, the truth has a way of coming back. And sometimes, it comes back when you least expect it. The Golden State Killer thought he had gotten away with everything. He built a life, grew older, and likely believed the past would stay buried forever. But history has a long memory, and science gave it a voice. As we look back on this case, one thing stands out above all else: persistence. Investigators refused to give up. They kept searching, kept testing, kept believing that one day, the pieces would fall into place. And they did. If this story left you thinking, make sure to like the video and share it with someone who's fascinated by real mysteries. And don't forget to subscribe to Shadow Files, because the next case might be just as shocking, and just as close to home. You never know what secrets are hiding in plain sight.